Hello and welcome to our Ujima Talks. Today's talk is entitled Black Advocates in Our Economy. Thank you for joining us today as we discuss the work of Black advocates and what we contribute to the economy and also our own economic freedoms. We will discuss the wage gap and economic security for Black women, specifically Black women survivors and advocates. And together we will envision practices that can better economically support and uplift Black advocates and survivors as well. My name is Ayana Wallace-View, and I'm one of the Training and Technical Assistance Managers with Ujima Inc., the National Center on Violence Against Women in the Black Community. I have the absolute pleasure of welcoming my friend, our featured speaker for today, and my colleague, Kaylin Foy, who's also a Training and Technical Assistance Manager here with the team. Kaylin Foy is both a survivor of both domestic and sexual violence. She is also an advocate who's been in the field, doing things, making moves for folks to end domestic and sexual violence against Black women. Kaylin founded the nonprofit organization Sisters Acquiring Financial Economic Empowerment, also known as SAFE, back in April 2006. She is a well sought after national speaker and has presented at local, state, and national conferences. Kaylin has presented on a national expert panel regarding U.S. advocacy and community engagement for survivors at the second annual World Conference of Women's Shelters. In October 2013, she was featured in an Essence magazine article on domestic violence written by the White House. Kaylin and Sisters Acquiring Financial Empowerment have received multiple honors and awards, including the 2009 National Network to End Domestic Violence Spirit of Advocacy Award. Currently, Kaylin serves again as our Training and Technical Assistance Manager with the Ujima Inc. team, and she's also currently writing her memoir, which is set to be released in 2024. Thank you so much, Kaylin, for taking time out and joining us today. We've been really excited for this conversation.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate you.
Of course, we know you're an expert, so we had to have you on. You have lots of things to talk about, so we know we'll have you back. But for this conversation, we have a few questions that are going to help frame us, but I'm really just going to let you take it away and let you take the conversation where it leads you. So if you're ready to jump in, we can go ahead.
Yes, I'm ready.
All right, sounds good. So the first question we wanted to really start with is to hear more about your journey, how you became an expert in economic justice work, and where did this deep passion come from?
So my journey actually began with my survivor story, is what I would normally say. But I would say, actually, just being a Black woman, raised by a Black woman who always made $1 out of 15 cents, this is like ingrained in us. It's actually not fair. It's not. The expectations that we can make $1 out of 15 cents is a phrase that's often said in many communities. In my neighborhood, people say it all the time, like, I just gotta make it work. And so that's how I was raised. And so then I became in a domestic violence relationship, and it ended in 1998, Labor Day weekend, with my oldest daughter's father assaulting me to the point where I had to get reconstructive surgery. I have a titanium implant that replaces the bone under my eye. And it was very challenging, as one could imagine, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically. But in 1998, what was not explored was the economic ramifications. So 1998 was only 4 years after the Violence Against Women Act went into effect. And at that time, the messaging, the posters that I would see in the community, the television PSAs were all around the physical violence at that time. So it was all pictures of Black eyes and busted lips. And it wasn't until I went into the emergency room that I recognized that I was actually a survivor of domestic violence. So I didn't know any of the other signs or any of the things. Like, the awareness was new, the work was new, and at the time it just focused on the physical abuse. So I called a domestic violence shelter, and I lived in Detroit, Michigan at the time, and the shelter was full. And I called. Now this is really aging me. I looked in the yellow pages. So I'm looking in the yellow pages, and and I actually still had double vision. I had sight problems, and I still had to get surgeries, but I'm like struggling looking through this yellow pages for domestic violence resources. So I called a program in the suburbs. And I remember I had a friend take me out there, and I was thinking, how would somebody get here if they didn't have transportation? Like, this is ridiculous. And so in the program, I'm saying the financial need that I have, because my oldest daughter's father, he was the breadwinner, he was gone. I have an apartment, a child, car, and my gas heat was threatening to get cut off, like my lights was threatening to get cut off. My car ended up getting repossessed. And so I'm asking for support, and there just wasn't any support for me at that time. What I chose to do was find a job, because at the time I worked as a telephone operator for the hospital system in Detroit, for one of the hospital systems. And I was the one that would say, like, trauma team to the trauma room. You might see that in like TV shows, Cold Blue, like I was that person. And so with me having double vision, they my doctor would not release me to go back to work, but I needed money. And that's all I was like, I need to take care of my baby, you know? So what I chose to do was quit my job and find a new job, because a new job didn't require a return to work note. So I got a job working for a payroll company. I still had double vision. Needless to say, processing payroll checks and having double vision was not a good combination. So I messed up a bunch of people's checks. I got called into the office of the manager, and he said, maybe we hired you too aggressively here. We're gonna retrain you. And I didn't say a word. I didn't say this domestic violence situation was happening. I didn't say anything because I was scared of being judged. So I just humbly got retrained and stuck with the company. I ended up loving the work. I ended up getting a scholarship from the Women's Independent Scholarship Program that helps survivors of domestic violence to return to school. I worked as a human resource administrator. And while I worked as a human resource administrator for a hospital in HMO in Detroit, is where I saw survivors of domestic violence in different levels of the company. I saw how it affected their coworkers, how it affected them, how it affected their paycheck. I saw how it affected the company as a whole, between morale, lower morale with having people going through these type of situations, to coworkers like, oh, I'm going to take you home, putting their own self in risk. So we had to hire additional security to walk people to their cars. And so just looking at all these intersections. And then one day I was at work and I called a woman in and was giving her a verbal warning about her lower productivity. So she says, well, this is what's happened with me. And I said, she said, I know this would never happen to you. And so when she finished, I was like, why would you think it would never happen to me? You know, and when she left, I thought about that. Like, why did she think this would never happen to me? Because I don't have the visible scars of what I've been through, because I'm the human resource person. Like, I don't know why she thought that. And I went home and God gave me the vision to start this organization. And I'm not a financial analyst or didn't have that background, but I knew this was a gap and that this work was important. And so the first things that we start off with was helping people to seek work who were in domestic violence situations. So really integrating safety planning, like how do you seek work if you're being stalked? Right. And so really talking about things like, okay, you take some clothes with you, you change into McDonald's because your abuser knows what you look like when you're going to the laundromat versus you're going to a job interview. So right. Really talking through those type of solutions. And then, as I and others got more training, then we started doing other aspects and really looking at it from, really was motivated from Umi Hankins to really look at it in a cultural lens. Because when I first started, like she would say, like, you really need to make this culturally specific to the Black community, the work that you're doing this great work in Detroit, you're having these big events, you're doing this and that. And I was like, well, money is green. Like, I don't see it. Like, I don't see how I can make this cultural. And it wasn't until I actually got a couple of contracts to help other populations to create culturally specific programs for them in the Latinx community and with Asian Pacific Islanders. And so I'm helping them to develop their culturally specific program. And I'm like, that's not what would be important to me, my mama, my grandma. That's not what we prioritize. That's not how we spend money. And so I kind of took a step out to look into my own community to like, no, this is totally culturally specific. No, money and how we spend money, how we save money, what we do with our money, even how we fold our money up and put it in our pockets is culturally specific.
Or if we use a pocket, right?
Culture. Yes, it's all culture. And so once that light bulb went off for me, now I want everybody to get there. Like, I want to just help everybody to understand the connection between culture and money and how important that is for survivors of domestic violence and the work that we do and supporting the advocates in our community. And it really makes a difference.
That's awesome. I feel like every time I talk to you, I like hear about another one of your lives that you've lived. And I'm like, Kaylin has lived a lot of lives out here. I need to know more. So something you've talked about a little bit already are just general framing around money in the Black community. Can you talk about what some perspectives are that have come up, or some different challenges that Black folk generally face when it comes to finances? And then you can talk about advocacy or survivorship, however you want.
Well, I mean, I'm just going to say, like, Black people money problems are rooted in racism. The things that we do are a result of us trying to protect ourselves and our families. And so with that is like my mantra, my like banner that I've been waving for the last at least 5 years. My pedestal that I stand on is compassion, and having compassion for each other and having compassion for ourselves. Because sometimes we're looking like, I messed up my check, or I did, I bought this thing that I really wanted. Maybe I shouldn't have bought it. I gave money to my kids. That's me. If you look at my Cash App, oh my God, I gave money to my kids. And, we'll start beating ourselves up, and the guilt around, it's a lot of guilt. We carry a lot of guilt tied to us and our money. And this is where I think like the whole, and I love to see it, the whole Black girl in luxury movement is an offshoot of, and I think that's just a counter movement to reduce the guilt around our spending. I mean, we are made to feel guilty over even buying our kids gym shoes. Like, what are you doing that for? We're made to feel guilty over even faith giving, tithes, offerings. Like, it's so many things that we do. Even if we wanted to go to or buy organic food, like, what are you doing that for? So I think that is like some of the bigger challenges. On the other level is the societal and institutional challenges that do come from racism that affect us every day. Redlining, predatory lending, lower wages for doing the same work as everybody else. Like, those are the things that contribute to it, because at the end of the day, we are working with less than our counterparts. And so how do we maximize it? How do we make it work for us? Or how do we shine? We always gonna look good. Like, how do we, that's part of our, okay, this is me all day. I got this 15 cents and I'm trying to make $1. Okay, I got a coupon. This is on clearance. This is on sale. You would never know it when I pull it all together. I got this promo code for my online shopping. But that's just what we do. So we're very savvy with it, but it's very, it weighs us down. So it weighs this guilt and this knowing that you're getting paid less than the next person, it actually can take a toll on our own personal health. So more than our personal finances, it starts to affect us mentally, it affects us physically. And so this is a very important conversation to have.
Absolutely. You made some really great points that I'm just thinking about, you know, how are people showing up? What are they asking for? What are people not asking for? What assumptions are people making about money and who has money and value? Just a lot of things coming up. So what then does Black financial wellness look like for you?
It looks like freedom. It smells like freedom. It's what it looks like. It looks like us having access to create our own financial paths. That's for the survivors of domestic violence. That's for advocates. That's for community members, stakeholders, everybody Black. I'm rooting for everybody Black.
Right.
It is about having equal wages, access to healthy food options. You know, a lot of us live in food deserts, educational opportunities, travel, you know, so really what we want for our children, what we want to support our children is our families, our loved ones, healthcare. You know, healthcare costs are so expensive. And that could be prohibitive to people to like, okay, I'm in a hospital. I need serious health care, but I live in a shelter, or I can't think about my healthcare challenge right now. I can't address that. I can't get dental care. A lot of state health insurance, Medicaid, those type of programs don't always include dental insurance. They might pull your tooth, but not repair it. And so then that could affect you going to a job interview. So it's just all of these things that can really make a huge difference.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I was just thinking about how common it is for survivors to have dental issues, right? Especially because of physical violence or maybe a lot of different intersections that come up. And just how difficult it is to afford insurance when you might be a full-time working person. It's like already really expensive, like you were saying. And then for folks to have all these other strains on them, yeah, that can be really put folks in a very compromising position to like choose, can I get my tooth fixed and feel great and feel, whole again, or versus what do I have to do to make this work, or can I make this work? Yeah.
And there's even a lack in cosmetic surgery for survivors of domestic violence, to recover, or to get tattoos removed that a partner might have forced the tattoo. And then there's a whole nother conversation around reproductive justice and abusers forcing survivors to have multiple children. So, and the cost to that, so there's so many levels and there's so many things. I just really wanted to speak to the advocates today and encourage the advocates, because hearing about economic abuse from survivors of domestic violence, and you might be a survivor of something yourself, can be very overwhelming as an advocate, because we work for nonprofit organizations. So our wages are not at the top of the list. So you're already making lower wages, especially in the field of domestic violence itself. Unfortunately, our wages tend to be lower. And so someone is telling you about their financial issues, and you might feel like, well, my finances are in a shambles. How can I help somebody? How can I support someone? And so this work often gets like relegated to the bookkeeper or the finance person or the accountant. And I just want to encourage advocates that you can do this work as well. And it doesn't take a lot, because sometimes it's like, oh, this is one more thing on me. It doesn't take a lot. This is just another phase of advocacy. And if you start to implement some of these things that you're teaching and talking about, like, we're going to do this together. Let me start analyzing exactly what I'm doing. Let me think about my own financial goals and what am I trying to accomplish? What do I want to do next year that I need to save for, or things of that nature. So I just want to encourage the advocates. I know it's a lot of challenges, but it's definitely worth it.
And I think that's a perfect reminder because we always, as advocates, we always want to look at what's happening with survivors, and we often neglect ourselves and our own financial freedoms or where we can get to financial freedom. So I love that, Caitlin. Any other thoughts around some other tangible things that folks in the Black community can do to support each other financially or build more community economically?
I think one thing, just continuing my conversation of encouraging, is that there is a growing conversation within the national centers such as Ujima around advocates' pay. And so as you see these conversations happening, you can lend your voice to support on a national level that advocates' pay is reviewed and looked at and adjusted. I think that would be one thing, you know, as we have conversations around pay equity for advocates in the nonprofit sector. I think it's important to, as we look at things that as an advocate that you can do, you know, I mentioned about, you know, looking at your own, it is hard to look at your own finances sometimes. And that could also be like our challenge of helping others, right? But looking at your own finances, and I'm not saying budgeting, I'm saying, because I already know you know how to save money, you know how to make money stretch, but being honest with yourself around what you spend, because that's the guilt part, right? You don't put, if you are going to write down, like I'm going to write down everything I spend money on every pay. And this is something I do. So I just write down everything I'm going to spend money on, but really honestly what I spend money on. So I'm getting my hair done. I am going to get my hair done. So I'm going to write that down. And so those kind of things, my faith giving, I'm writing that down. Now, those are things that we're often like, that's not important. And we're chastised about. And so much so we don't even want to see it written down. And so we don't really have an adequate, like we get money, we make stuff happen, we do what we're going to do, but we really don't have like a real grasp on what's coming in, what's going out, what we're doing. And just because you're looking at a number, I'm not saying to adjust the number. I'm just saying that you're fully aware of what it is that you're doing. So you don't feel like money is just flowing through your pockets like water, because that makes you feel like you're not in control of your own situation. I mean, even other recreational activities or libations that you might indulge in. People don't put that down like I have a cocktail once a week after work with my friend. But that's what you do. That's what you're spending your money on. So put it down there. It's okay. We grown.
Right. It's for yourself. And I think that's where it gets scary a lot of times of like, all right, I'm really gonna have to look at these finances, figure out what I'm doing and why, and like what's still important to me. I remember we were talking about hair specifically of like, put budget for your hair. Like you should be like, it's not just a privilege. Like you should do it for yourself as basic wellness, right? Of like, take care of yourself, make yourself feel good.
And if you're doing your own hair, you're still going to the beauty supply, you're getting things. So sometimes we don't count, you know, because we're doing it ourselves. We might like, okay, well, I'm still going to the beauty supply once a month or however often to get the supplies that I need. And it's, you know, the whole hair conversation in Black hair, how we take care of our children, the things that we do for our children, all of these things we've been like vilified for. And so we're like scared to even acknowledge it or tell other people. And I just think it's sad, honestly. I think we just need to have more compassion for ourselves and each other.
Love that. And so last thought, last word on how we can better support not only Black survivors, but really be better in supporting Black advocates.
So as a Black advocate, I would definitely, some practical things that I like to do are some visioning exercises. So envision, whether it's a vision board, whether you're doing something electronic, I like to really think about where it is I'm trying to go. What are my short-term goals? What are my long-term goals? What's a big old goal that I'm scared to even like admit this might be my goal? To really think about that, like what am I trying to do? How can I keep my money safe? What are some practical things I can do. How am I managing my money? Am I going to a check cashing place that's charging me 400% interest? How can I stop doing that and keep more of my money myself? Are there some other things that I can look at? Credit card interest, some of these, some of those paying for plans, like, okay, that's real easy to buy, but then they start to add up, and it can become really overwhelming to have multiple plans like that. And then some of those plans don't have interest, but some do. And then some have big fees when you don't pay. So really reading the fine print and being aware of what that is. And that's just, in your personal life and managing your personal, finances and what you need to do. And once you start thinking about your own, like, okay, I'm going to pull my credit report and see what it looks like. Then once you go through that activity yourself, now you can help or assist someone else with the same activity. And you'll have more compassion because you know how scared you was when you pulled all those papers up.
Oh, thank you so much, Kaylin. I feel like we're gonna have to have another spotlight with you giving us some more examples and tips and things to think about, and also just talking about one of your other lives, because I need more. The folks need more. So thank you all so much. This is our Ujima. Thank you all so much. This is our Ujima talk for today, and we'll see you around. Have a great one.
Thank you. Thank you.